up, buddy? Welcome back.
Welcome to the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 231, brought to you by Mike Tarrolly.
Mike Tarrolly.
Yeah, I thought just for a second I'm going into about, 10 to 15 minutes of commercials and sponsor ads, but decided, nah, let's just stay the way we've done it for the last 2.5 years.
No commercials on this podcast. No podcast today.
No podcast, just commercials. And we'll test this, do a little tester, see how everybody likes it. But I listened to a few. Yes, thank you I just got back from Chattanooga like 5 minutes ago. But we listened to a few podcasts when we're on the road. Allie has a few that she likes. I have an occasional one that I'll listen to. And she mentioned to me, she was like, I think we're going to be there before we actually get to hear the episode of the one we were listening to. And I was like, yeah, that happens a lot. Like the first 15 minutes or episode. So I have to feel that although it takes us usually 10 to 15 minutes to get into our groove, at least we're not trying to sell you, at least we're not trying to just blatantly sell you on something and do our sales pitch.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
That's true.
No, I'm kidding.
Speaking of not yet, here are the 6 sponsors we've added for 2019 for the next 30 minutes. We'll be selling razors, shoes, hemp, underwear, and ketogenic water, hydromoleculed filtered water for $9.99 a liter. Sold to you once a week. That's all you need. You don't even need to eat. You just drink this water and you're good.
And it's delivered to your door.
It's delivered to your door. It's all about hydration. If you need to cancel though, you're gonna have to call. You can't email. Just got to call.
You got to call. Are you sure you want to cancel?
Are you sure you want to cancel? Because you just like all these hoops. And you're like, I don't even remember what I called to cancel. And you're like, screw it.
Yeah.
The old cable TV issue. But
you've been in Chattanooga a little bit lately. How's my favorite city?
Shoot, it's awesome. We're only going to go down for a day. We were only going to go down for Sunday night. We had some things we were going to do, and then I looked at the weather, and it was like in the 60s. And still today, it's gorgeous outside. And I think it will be tomorrow. So we went up a day early and went hiking and enjoyed some time outside. I ran on the Riverwalk. And they've extended it. It's now even longer than it was.
Did you go out that one side, the back side?
Didn't go to the backside. We actually drove out to where it starts at the Chickamauga Dam or whatever it's called, and happened on to like the middle of a race, which was kind of interesting. But it was actually a kind of a cool event. I think it's called like the Frostbite half or something. Anyway, it's actually a 2-day event, which is actually pretty neat. It's a 5K, a 10K, and a half marathon, and you could do either event on each day. And it was basically just a timed run. Like there wasn't like a big hoopla, but you got a bib number, and they got like a timing chip. You just run your own race on the Riverwalk only with 8 stations, and you could do it Saturday or Sunday, which I thought was kind of neat. But we were out there doing our run, and I was pushing Hayden, and it's just kind of interesting being in the middle of a race, but not in the race because it's not closed off. They can't close off the course,
right?
And like even like a few times I had to be like, whoa. Back it down. Just do 8:30s. Back it down to the 8:30s. Because you're
trying to coach.
No, I mean I was like pushing the pace, and like I was running with Allie.
Oh, backing yourself down, yeah.
Yeah, backing myself down. I was like, whoa, just chill out, because people are like, hey, great job, because they just assume you're in the race. You're like, thanks, just crushing about 38 today. We're doing like 40 minutes, but no, it's a good trip, a great weekend, and I think a lot of people listening to this podcast had nice weather this weekend too, because I had a lot of text messages for the old, hey, do you care if I ride outside today? No, it's January. If you can ride outside, go outside. Or if you need to switch so you can do your run outside, then run outside. It's just, you got to take these days and enjoy them and love them all you can.
Yes, you do. And I'll tell you firsthand that many more people than just podcast listeners were taking advantage of that out on my greenway.
On
yesterday.
Your green.
My greenway.
Over 50, things go from ours or yours to mine.
Yeah.
Everything turns into, hey, this is my neighborhood, this is my greenway.
Well, it's been very interesting to see the growth of said greenway over the last 5 years here in Nashville, Tennessee. It was absolutely out of control.
Oh, dude, I bet.
I was stunned, laughing. Good thing I was on an easy recovery ride on my mountain bike because...
Okay, good.
Yeah. But that didn't stop the few select road bikers from getting out of their saddle and just blasting down the greenway, man. I'm like telling these guys, slow down, bro.
Did you get a few on your lefts?
Yeah, I got a few of everything's, and then, a few of me saying on your left to a stream of 4 people crossing the whole greenway. It was just, I don't know. I was on the good thing I was on my mountain bike because I was on the grass a lot, just passing. But
there is like this, and I know we should all be. I'm always glad to see people outside, but sometimes people are just totally oblivious to taking to like, especially on the greenway. 'Cause, we have a little green right next to us too, and sometimes people would just be like running or walking like 5 abreast, covering the entire greenway.
Oh yeah,
and
they're the people that say this is my greenway.
That's exactly right. Those people. But hey, try to cut people a little bit of slack these days. Everybody's cutting calories. So people everywhere you look, everybody's hangry, and so you kind of gotta have to tread lightly because everybody's on a diet. And everybody's cutting back calories and eating lettuce and raisins for their meals for the day. So you gotta tread softly because you don't want to bark up the wrong tree. And you might not like what's barking back.
Oh, I know. I actually spent most of the time working on my own attitude because it is nice to see people out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to see the activity. I was on a ride yesterday, but the day before I was working on my nose breathing, which I think is outstanding practice.
Oh,
by the
it
way.
is. How'd that go for you? I got a lot of feedback of that recently.
Have you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about it, so we're going to get feedback of it, obviously. But
true. Well, I found it's first of all, it's pretty hard to do because, but the benefit, I think, other than the fact that it kind of keeps you slowed down and under control, is that it teaches you to breathe with more relaxation. You have to really kind of just calmly breathe, or you're going to get way behind, and even if you're going slow, because it's so hard to, most people aren't used to breathing that way, but that's the way we should breathe, I think, more often.
I think just like you said it, people usually just go, I don't know, I hate saying like you go from either control or out of control, but I think a lot of people, like you said, a lot of times it's just, you need to just be mindful of it. It's not like people run with their breathings out of control. They just don't really pay attention to actually controlling it. Like they'll just huff and puff going up hills or down hills. They'll breathe through their mouth the entire time. And then you change things up and they're like, whoa, this is actually, I got to actually focus on this instead, just being more purposeful or mindful about how you breathe and like the amount of oxygen you're having to utilize. And that's when you can also start seeing some benefits for a lot of people, and they slow things down, and I think it's one of the quickest things you kind of understand and usually feel is those are when you get done with your runs and you feel more energized than you feel zapped. And that was then commenting on an athlete's thing this morning about running in the ice and the snow, and I said, I don't know, man. Like I know we talk about this every time of year, but I'm still waiting for like the cold spell to get here and stay, but there's just something about running outside in the cold and snow that just makes you feel alive. And breathing through your nose, I think, and just taking things and calmly going about your business is, I know everybody kind of moans and groans about the cold, and I'm definitely up there, even though I've kind of fallen in love with it the last few years, because there's only like. Yeah, if you go to the treadmill every single time, and I want to get to something about treadmill running today, is that it's not going to be before long before you're also complaining that it's too hot to run outside. And so can we just cool it with I was too cold, and like if it's under 10, then I say think about it. But even then, some of my most enjoyable runs in the past have been putting my yak tracks on and going out when it's like around 0 and coming home with some beard sickles, and hash or slash snot sickles. But it is, it's, I don't know, it's I think it's just a good thing overall. It should make you feel more controlled and more mindful and more purposeful with your runs and what you're doing, and then you should feel more energized at the end. And I think anytime you can be more mindful in your training, I think good things are going to happen.
For sure. I really love it. And one of the side benefits is there's far less people on my greenway when I'm going out when it's in the 20s. Mm-hmm. So, but no, it's sort of that crisp, wide. I mean, you can't help but be just, in tune with nature a little bit more, I think, when it's like cold like that, and you can kind of hear the ground, the grass blades breaking underneath your feet and that sort of thing. It's just like, if you can get that one down, I mean, I think the extreme running on either side is awesome, to be honest. I mean, it seems like the worst, but think about what the mental advantage of both of those are. If you can go out and run when it's in the 20s,
Oh, for sure.
In the 90s, and then all of a sudden you've got, I think you've got a little upside on that, on the rest of the field probably.
Oh, you do. And then it usually allows you to do, more things more often, which is always a good thing. But what I was trying to mention earlier, segueing about the treadmill, is that just I won't go into like a huge, tangent about it, but
okay.
If you a few things about the that was your way of saying
that was my cue to kick up the feet.
That was your bullshit. Yeah, that was your. Let me kick
relax
my feet
for a few now.
Yeah, hit mute. I'll go get some coffee. Walk Maddie, come back, and you'll still be talking about treadmill. Listen, there is a lot of benefit to running on the treadmill. I'm a fan of it. There have been points in my athletic career where I have done 95 to 100% of my running on the treadmill, and seen good benefits. I know plenty of athletes that do 85 to 90% of their running on the treadmill for various reasons, just from location to time of day to safety, all these kind of things. A couple things that it's very, very, very important, I think, for athletes to understand when they get to this time of year and they start running on the treadmill is that for so many people, a lot of things happen. One, you're going to realize that your effort is going to be higher for pace on the treadmill. Perceived exertion for almost everybody is higher on the treadmill. You will get on the treadmill and you'll think you're doing one pace, and you look down and you're like, oh my God, I'm going so slow. But the effort level is higher. And a lot of that can be, I think, is due to the fact that a lot of treadmills aren't accurate. B, you're not going anywhere, so you're less stimulated. And C, there's just, no matter what kind of fan you have in front of you, unless you place like an industrial fan in front of you at like you're in your home like pain cave, then it's going to feel harder. You're not getting near the wind that you would be outside. So heart rate will be higher, exertion level will be higher. The other thing that I think people don't think about is that a lot of athletes have a much different running stride and gait on the treadmill. This time of year, I always have athletes who go from running outside and running a specific way, and they hop on the treadmill and they automatically run differently. Usually what happens is their strides really, really, really shorten, or really, really, really get longer, in two different aspects. One, they'll just shorten up. It'd be a little choppy because a lot of people shorten their strides just from kind of human nature, in that they feel confined. They don't want to outrun the treadmill, or if they're doing speed work on the treadmill, a lot of athletes will take longer strides on purpose because it's easier. Mm-hmm. It's easier. The more you travel in the air, the treadmill moves underneath you, so you're getting it free. So what'll happen is people will change their pace, and so they'll not only change, or not their pace, their stride or their gait. You're going to change your stride or gait also based on a slower pace that you're doing. And so I've already had 2 or 3 athletes. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, but unless you can learn to run right, you're gonna have to go back outside. And their pain is totally gone away, totally gone, back to normal. And I think it's something that you just need to troubleshoot if you're out there and like, I'm starting to pick up, it must be the volume, or it must be or it must be this, or it must be that. Like, just troubleshoot things. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. And as a coach, it's one of the more difficult things that I have to do. And I'm always not great at it. Sometimes I either overthink it or I don't think through it enough. But, I get a little niggle, and everyone's first thought to everything is, I must have ran too hard, or the training load must be too high. Let's think for a minute. What's gone on? Look at your life, forest view, not tree view, and let's see what's happened. Okay, you started treadmill running. Check. Okay. That's one thing. Okay, you got new shoes. Okay, that was another thing. I had an athlete who bought new shoes that they were a half size bigger than they should have been. And so her foot was moving up and down in the shoe and was causing some pain in her leg, because I think and that's why we're all so very, very and you and I are this to a T, very, very obsessed with a shoe. When you find out that it works, then you might as well just buy 20 of them, because I don't ever want to here, because it's one of the most important things you're going to find in running is finding a good shoe that works for you. And so when you change even a half size, the movement in your shoe front and back is going to make a difference. And then you have athletes on the treadmill and maybe I'm running shorter, maybe I'm running this. And then you have athletes that will choose to run outside instead of on the treadmill when things are icy, which is also going to change your gait, change your stride. You're probably going to clench your toes. There's all these things you always have to look at instead of just assuming it is it's because of running, quote unquote, or just general volume or general intensity. There's always usually something else going on. And so again, treadmill is that thing where make sure you understand that things are different. I'm a huge fan of a higher cadence for a lot of athletes, but again, depending on what kind of body type you have, depending on your gait, your stride, what you normally do, how much you're going to use the treadmill, a lot of it can you just run different. I'd be hard pressed to find somebody who runs the exact same on the treadmill that they do outside all the time. And so it's just, again, it's a good thing. You can do a lot of great things with the treadmill. It's great for easier, shorter runs where you're not going to be on it for a long period of time. It's also easier on the body. And then lastly, stop putting your treadmill up to 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4 incline, thinking you're being Billy Mount Everest on every single treadmill run. 0.5 to 1.5. That's it. Get on with your day, go about your business, and stop trying to act like you're improving life and you're running mechanics more than anybody else. That's not the case. You can do hill work on the treadmill, which is great, but if you're just going for a leisurely 25, 30, 35, 40 whatever it is, run, leave it between 0.5 to 1.5 incline, because that's what's going to mimic your regular biomechanics outside. Not like you're training for Leadville, where you need to go try to climb things. You're working so much of your hamstrings, you're just overdoing it, and your calves are going to take a lot of the load. So just think about things like that. Just keep it. And I've had to tell her, it's I ran this at 4.0 incline. I'm like, congrats. Is there a race you signed up I didn't know about? Are we trying to, summit Kilimanjaro tomorrow? Okay, good. I didn't think so. Get it back to 0.5 to 1.5, and let's just get back to work, because it's just so much extra strain on top of a change gait for longer periods of time than you're used to it, and then you wonder why the next day your calves are so tight they're going to pop. Speaking of popping calves, quick side note, have you seen that mutual fund or insurance commercial where they're making fun of the triathlete looking guy?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, it's hysterical. Al and I were in bed one night, getting a small 30-minute show in, and it was it was so funny. And they even talked to making fun of his calves. It was pretty hysterical. Hopefully,
wait, no, I have seen that. The biker guy.
Yes, he's got the bike. He's I like this fancy helmet and these fancy calves, and they zoom out, and he's got these ginormous calves or whatever. But anyway, that was just a small little. I thought it was funny.
That was pretty funny. Do a lot of people mainly run on treadmill that you deal with, or? I mean, I don't know.
People can become addicted to it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It must be something like that, because, frankly, I can't ever enjoy it. But I guess that's sort of like a trainer. Once you get past a certain point, maybe then it's okay, this is where it's at. you know. Might feel like a better workout or something.
I've gone through phases where I become addicted to running on it. It's just so easy, you know, and it's especially if you're like especially if you own one, because we're all creatures of habit. So if you start to do one thing and you keep doing it and you find yourself like in the zone, you're just gonna kind of keep going through it. Like I've been there. It's just kind of what you do. But at the same time, like, and I think a lot of times the deal is for athletes this time of year who own a home treadmill, it is so much easier for them to hop on it when it's dark or icy, or maybe where they live isn't that, you know, safe when it's dark, and you don't have to layer up. You know, so I think a lot of athletes utilize it in that way, which I think is good, because it's just like the trainer, it can be a gigantic time saver. But going back to like the beginning of this conversation, sometimes it does make you mindless. How is your posture? How is your breathing? How is your stride? Because usually now what's happening is people are running on the treadmill with a changed gait and a different stride and not looking at their breathing while they're staring at Zwift running or a Netflix video or whatever. So everything we do now with these applications and with the software and with these opportunities is a lot of them is just disconnecting you from being mindful of what you are actually doing with your body. Now, obviously, you can see heart rate and cadence and all these things on the screen, but one of the biggest things I think is just remembering that you're running different. Because I've seen a lot of people in the past. When I used to work at a triathlon store and we do run analysis, swim analysis there, a lot of people lean back on the treadmill when they shorten their gait. And they'll just like slightly lean back. They won't lean near as much forward, just because I think of how the treadmill is shaped, obviously. And if you feel like you're falling over too fast, you're going to fall into like the main board. Mm-hmm. Or what. But people always will sit up a little bit higher or almost back instead of a little bit, going forward, which again changes your gait. And then a lot of people, if you're listening and you've had lower back pain on the treadmill, a lot of it can be solved by just looking at your posture, because more than likely you're doing what a lot of people do, and that's like lean a little bit too far back on the treadmill.
Yeah. I wonder too if there's just a natural, like, this is sort of how I feel on a treadmill. Maybe it's just because I don't really ever get used to running on it all the time, but I feel a little anxiety when I run on a treadmill.
Why is that?
Well, I think it is because of what you were saying, that if you're leaning, you're always just like one false misstep away from just slamming into the mat kind of thing. Okay. And so maybe it's subconscious, and I'm not saying like I'm scared on there, but I'm just saying there's always this sort of amped up kind of tension that you have to have. Or also you can, if you're slow down, you can kind of get in that sort of mindless groove, especially if you're watching something. Or this is the thing is, yeah, while I know that, like I've been trying to ride my trainer usually is where I bring in sports games or something like that while I'm riding. But typically I have a really difficult time of, and I know you don't, but of watching something I really have to concentrate on, because I'm in and out of these, intervals and all this sort of thing. And I just have always believed that ultimately I'm best when I have no distraction during workouts.
Yeah.
That's the mindful piece, I guess. But that's always what I strive to do.
I've stopped ever since our conversation with Magnus, or was it Brad Stolberg? You remember we talked about that for a little bit? Mm-hmm. Is like, so now, like if I'm doing a interval session. So right now I'm all in on the Peaky Blinders.
Get a boy.
Yeah, but listen, I gotta tell people, if you want a good lesson of resiliency and not giving up and always going after something, look no further than the Peaky Blinders. I tried to get into that show on Netflix twice and never made it past the second episode. But you know what? I just wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. I just wasn't ready to commit. I wasn't ready to kind of, let things happen, let things play out. I was just impatient. And you know what happened? I kind of got out of my own way and said, let it flow. Let's see what the Schiller brothers had to offer. And next thing you know, I'm already on season 2. So,
who's your favorite who's your favorite character?
I don't know yet, man. I go back and forth.
Yeah.
It's hard to not like Thomas, but
Tommy Shelby.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie, man.
He's the biggest man crush guy out there right now.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I'm a big fan of his mom.
Oh, Polly?
Yes, love some Polly.
She's hard, man. She is a hard
exactly. Anyway,
driver.
We digress. Back to your Netflix commercial Peaky Blinders update. But recently, when I've been watching that, if I have intervals, I'll watch part of it during the warm up. And then when it's actually time to do the intervals, I actually shut down my laptop. And I'll just listen to music. And I'll do my intervals, and then when it's time to cool down, I'll either just cool down with nothing, or I'll flip it back up. But I won't even look at anything. I will just close it. I'll have my music. Because let's be honest, like most of the time, intervals are short enough to where if you're in the zone and you got something to think about, and if you're a music person, I am, especially on the trainer, you can just get into a zone and get into your own thoughts and just put it out there. And so that's what I've been doing, and I have seen a much better I don't want to say performance, because I think you would need to look at things a lot longer. Like, I'm not going to be a prisoner in a moment and say it's just gigantic game changer. But for me, it removes an extra piece of the puzzle that my mind has to, like, if I can
create, right there.
It is. If I can create less noise for my mind to filter through before it gets to what my body is doing, then I have to believe that it's going to be a truer, more constant, mindful feedback. And so instead of always looking at something on a screen so I'm trying to watch, I'm trying to engage, I'm trying to know what's going on. And then I'm also trying to hit numbers and keep up my cadence and make sure I'm breathing properly and I'm in a good position and my shoulders are still relaxed. I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do. I've just taken out, like, the biggest piece of distraction. And now I can just focus on me and what I'm doing. And I've at least noticed that I feel better when I get done, not as in like I feel like a champion, but it better as in like I feel like I executed what I was set out to do better. And I think like the best way I could describe it is watching a game by yourself, alone in your house with no phone, or going out and watching it at a sports bar with your friends.
Oh,
you're gonna watch like maybe 10 seconds of the game. And you're going to miss things. You're going to turn around, or I think maybe the better one is you're at that really weird table in the sports bar, to where you don't have the perfect view. So you've got like 2 TVs in your periphery, and I've been there. I think everybody has, where you can't decide which one to look at.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You're like, I'm look over here, and then the commercial break happens. You switch over to the next one, and then even like mid play or mid series, you're like, look over here. So you're just always distracted. You're like never going. But that's how it's been for me on the trainer lately, with focusing on one thing, shutting down the laptop. Because honestly, even if my interval set's like 45 minutes total with intervals including rest, I can do that with just music. And it's nice to focus. So I do. I think that, being more mindful and being in it is something that is good for you, and that it does take practice, and that you ultimately, I think some athletes struggle on race day not having that, because they either have never had to go into their thoughts or be so mindful that they just kind of haphazardly do it. And I think sometimes there's kind of a learning curve between going inside and going indoors to going outside and doing these. And I understand there's a bunch of different factors, but I think one of the bigger things we've seen over the last year or two is that when people go from riding inside to riding outside, is they go from never having to pay attention to anything period at all ever, to going outside and riding with the group, or riding around roads with cracks and crevices and turns, having to shift. And then also group riders and also cars. People are becoming more and more and more reckless, because they don't know what it's like to have to pay attention the entire time.
Well,
and I think that's a negative.
That's it. The entire time part is huge, man.
It's exhausting. And
it's got to be natural. I mean, I think the best way to as I used to ride mountain bikes a lot, and you've kind of gotten into that more and more, but that really trained me to be almost subconsciously always on while you're riding a mountain bike, because you cannot afford to not be looking where you're going and looking out ahead and really being aware of all these things, because you'll hit a root or a rock or a tree or anything in a split second. So that was just, I kind of feel I'm really glad that I had that background, because it just sort of parlays its way into the road riding. And I think, honestly, dude, I mean, when you think about even music, I think I've been talking to a lot of people about this lately too, and we've touched on it many times. But regarding your intervals, I think that's something we should all strive to do without even music. I think that's good for the longer rides, but even on those or longer runs and stuff, it's like I think it's important to really be mindful even within the music, because it will throw you out of your zone occasionally, and that actually might be a good practice to stay within yourself while there's amped up music going, and really kind of almost being like, all right, that music's on, but I'm also here breathing through my nose. I mean, what a double like practice that would be to kind of really work on your patience, because the whole we like the Moneghetti run or whatever, that's the greatest thing ever to do without music. You just kind of go out, get your breath settled in, and then just blast it, those up and downs, and then you kind of cruise in. And once you kind of get through that crutch, I guess, almost, because I do think that you start that now, and then by the time you get to a late season race, your big race, and you don't have music there, and it's like, man, it's a difference, man. It is a huge difference.
I've quit riding my mountain bike a few times the last month or so, because I would go on a loop and I would have to sit like, dude, you gotta like focus, because my mind would start to wander. And if you do that, then you're going to make a mistake, and it's not the same as riding on your trainer or riding on the road. Even you might make a mistake, and it might hurt real bad. And a couple times, like the last month, I think especially, I got tired mentally way before I got tired physically, and decided to call it a day, because you have to pay attention the entire time, and it is exhausting. Like, for a lot of people, I think that's why, like, coming from just driving for 2 hours back from Chattanooga, that's why driving makes you tired. Because at least for most people, you have to concentrate, and you're staring at one thing the entire time. You're driving, you're checking the speedometer, you're checking cars behind you, checking your rear view, side view, how much longer do I got? Do I need to slow down? Do I need to brake? You're always just kind of you're always engaged, and a lot, and I do see some benefit to Zwift and like Rouvy, or whatever they call it, Rouvy, a new application people are using for like to simulate like virtual riding. I think that's helpful, but I also think that like none of the decisions you're going to make are going to end up in you getting T-boned on your trainer in your den at 5:30 in the morning. So I think there's definitely some good things, but I also can see drawbacks, and I think you're going to start to see, honestly, more and more and more drawbacks in races with continued poor bike handling skills, because people are going to be, and I get it. It's every time you open up your Facebook, or you talk to friends, you hear somebody getting clipped by a car, you hear somebody getting, nicked or a close call, and so it's scary. You're never going to win. I get it. I get doing things for. I totally understand. Totally get it. But at the same time, I think that so much can be gained too by at least maybe finding different ways. Like, that was one of the biggest reasons why I got a mountain bike and started to do it. It was because I still wanted to get outside, and I wanted to stay with my handling, and I wanted to work on things, and I wanted to be challenged, but I still wanted to do it safely. And yeah, is mountain biking the safest thing in the world? No, but is it as dangerous as maybe riding on a busy street? Absolutely not. Like, there is no fall I could take on my mountain bike trails that are going to even come close to getting hit by a car or having a really bad interaction with the driver. So I think there's happy mediums we can take to keep that feel for the road and for out riding, and I think that there's a lot of benefit, and I mean there's a lot of benefit in treadmills, a lot of benefit in trainers. Like for an interval session, there's nothing better. You know, I'll be the first one to tell you, I think the best piece of equipment any person can buy, period, is a trainer. You know, because it saves you a lot of money, or not money, it saves you a lot of time, especially within, you know, the winter, and like if it's midweek rides, you can't tell me you're gonna go harder or try harder outside. For most people, you know, and there are some people that loathe the trainer, but if you got like an hour and a half, there's nothing better than just hopping in your trainer, putting your music in, going to work, and just wearing it out. You got nothing else to worry about. But you know, I think that just like people become addicted to the treadmill, people become addicted to riding their trainer. And you know, I see huge positives with it too, because it is, you know, when you live in a world where you get married and you have friends, you have a life, and you have kids or whatever, and you just, you know, maybe in general just value your own life, you know, regardless of who you have.
People do that?
That's weird. You know, like people value their own life and like don't want to go. You want to be safe, you know, and you know, I love the trainer, but again, so there's purpose and positives to all, but I just think, as with anything, consumption-wise, you just always got to be careful and at least acknowledge and be aware of some of the drawbacks or some of the negatives that you might be experiencing by only doing one and not any of the other sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And well, let's face it, man. The grind of that sort of stuff, and I'm still kind of stuck on this distraction piece of it all, but like, I mean, what is triathlon is, once the race comes, I don't know, that race is at least half mental, right? I mean, I just keep going back to like, how do we harden our minds when we go through training, and how do we get used to certain things like that? I know I've been running for weeks at a time with music on, and then tried to go out without it, and it's different. So I guess I'm laboring a point that doesn't need to be talked about anymore. But when you say stuff like that, driving makes you tired. That all I keep thinking about is like, how do we flip our mind in that situation? You know, because we've all had second winds driving, right? Maybe, maybe not. But something happens. What is it? That's what I want to know. Like, what? I think the more you practice trying to, you know, if you look at a big old long straightaway on a bike and it's just you in the road, I mean, those are the moments where you really can, you know, figure out how to tweak things in your mind and get through, because you just said, you know, as you mentioned, your mind went out before your body, and I think that's such a huge point. I think that happens all the time, and we talk about it, like how people get second winds. What's a second wind, you know?
That's right.
But that's real, right? I mean,
it's real.
I think
it is totally real. You know, and I don't know, sometimes I feel like you get your, I don't know, man, like sometimes I feel like you don't get your second wind until you actually accept the fact that you're totally struggling and you're totally tired.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's because like your open-mindedness to it.
Well, I think that, but I think like in training and in life, like, because I think a lot of times everyone, most of the time, always tries to ignore anything uncomfortable, anything negative, anything, period. I mean, the worst of it is when athletes totally ignore like a niggle or a pain because they don't want to accept the fact that they may have to take it easy for a day or two. Mm-hmm. They'll just ignore it. And the next thing you know, they're in excruciating pain, and now they can't work out for 3 weeks. You know, there's this lack of self-control and humility, I think, and acceptance that so many athletes struggle with at acknowledging pain or shortcoming, or that they need help, or that things hurt. But you can't really ever solve a problem or circle back and like fight your way through it or figure out like the parts that you need to get to the other side until you accept the fact of acknowledging where you are. Because if you're not, you're just going to keep ramming your head into a wall until maybe you decide to look up and look around like, oh shit, there's like actually a door over there. I can just go walk through that and things will be good. But athletes don't like that. Athletes love to like, quote unquote, Because let's be honest, man, athletes don't love to figure things out by themselves. They just love to just not change and not challenge themselves to figure out that maybe they don't know the answer, or maybe they're doing it wrong, or maybe, you know what, I don't really want to take a step back and look at the fact that maybe I need to do some different exercise or different movements or structure my training a different way. I just want to know that I just want to keep telling myself that I know what I'm doing and I'm doing it right, and I can totally analyze all of my data. I can take my performance management chart and training piece. I can take my Garmin Connect app. I can take my HRV. I can take this, and I get it, man. Like I just I'm feeling good or I'm not feeling good, and I'm trending the right direction. And like you're examining the same thing every single day. It's like it's like making Kraft macaroni and cheese 7 days a week and feeling like you nailed it. Did you really? Did you really? You're not changing anything. You're not. I would say you're not going out of the box, but you are. Technically.
Technically. I don't think I could do that. By the way, 7 days.
Well, I mean, I couldn't either. But real quick, like side commercial. If you're a restaurateur out there, stop making kids mac and cheese like you're trying to impress the kid. Just straight up buy Kraft. That's all they love. They don't want it if you're like thick noodle white cheese crap with like breadcrumbs on top. Just give them Kraft, man. Just give them Kraft. But it's like athletes don't like to objectively look a lot of times at like what's the real reason of this, and maybe I do need to take a step back, or maybe I'm tired because of this, because they don't want to accept that because nobody likes change. I mean, most type A athletes they hate change. They don't want anything to change, and when change happens, things tend to not go right, or things just made like infinitely more difficult from somebody who's okay with being like really, really, really flexible. But most athletes, and I've worked with athletes in the past like this, that they don't want you to change them. They just want you to watch them continue to do what they really want to do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of athletes are like that, and a lot of self-coach athletes are like that, and a lot of athletes out there who hire a coach hire him not to change things or to have everything reworked to really make a difference. They just want you to basically be a bystander. Because when you ask, like, one of the first thing I always think of when, and sometimes I have to even remind myself of this when I forget how good I have it, is when somebody reaches out to you and asks you to coach them, the first thing they're asking for is, I want you to make a difference in my life. Mm-hmm. Because most of the time, it's not just with their training. They want you to solve the problem of how much time it takes, the stress, telling them yes, telling them no. Should I do this race? Should I not do this race? Am I too hurt? Am I not too hurt? Am I too tired? Am I not too tired? Should I sacrifice missing this family event and go work out, or should I go work out instead? Like, you're going to make a difference in that person's life, one way or the other. But a lot of times athletes reach out to coaches or want just training plans because they really don't want to make a difference. They just want you to be a participant and just letting them they don't want you to make a difference. They just want you to be an enabler. Mm. You can't tell them no. They just want you to be an enabler. And athletes are like that, and especially when they're really type A about that, it's just really, really hard to break some athletes like that. Mm-hmm.
Hey, can we go back to that second win for a second here? Because I've been thinking about a lot lately is this ability to recover within a workout. How you structure a lot of the Monteghetti's a good one, I guess, where you're going hard for half a minute and then off for a minute. Is that technically sort of training your body to recover in short intervals? How do you think about that? Because that's what I think about in a second wind, for example. Sometimes I feel like maybe in a race, for example, and I'll cite Ironman because it's the longest day, but sometimes I wonder if I were to just maybe like say, okay, I'm toast here at mile 9, for example. If I legitimately got my heart rate back down and did some intermittent recovery during this race, would I be better off rather than kind of hanging around that zone of like just barely okay. What I mean. Is there benefits in training when we're doing stuff like that? When we're doing interval work and doing the, a lot of times you'll say, it's slow, 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 even walk if you have to between the intervals.
Mm-hmm. Well, going to the Moneghetti run, like for me, anytime you do hard sessions like that, what happens for a lot of athletes most of the time is they will want two things usually happen. One, they hit speeds they're not used to. Mm-hmm. Because they get really, really warmed up and they get really, really. So we're talking like, obviously, if you haven't done this one before, we're talking like 15, 30, 45, 60, 90-second bursts with equal recovery. And you ladder up and you ladder down. And what oftentimes happens is athletes, A, will pick up and find a pace so much faster than they thought they could run. B, their slow version is almost always faster than they recognize. Mm-hmm. But also a lot of what happens is you can also it's for me it's kind of a systems mix. So if you're doing, and this is the same thing on the bike, like one of my favorite sessions for bikes is like 30-second all outs and minute all outs. Because what happens is for something as short as 30 and 60 seconds, you can really, 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 really work hard with your legs. 30 seconds and a minute, it takes a while. Like if you wear a heart rate monitor or you go by heart rate, like you can see how long it takes for your heart rate to catch up to your legs and the output that it's going. But then when you look at your rest interval, if you're a person that goes back and look at your graphs, like that's why like heart rate is good, but you can't like totally nail it down into how my intervals look, and that's why power is always a greater thing to go by, because you could look at your rest interval and your high heart rate would be 170, where you wouldn't even have reached 170 heart rate in your all-out interval, because there's such a lag with your heart rate that usually the first 5 to 10 to 15 seconds of your recovery period for a lot of athletes is some of the highest their heart rate's going to be for the workout, but it's in their quote-unquote rest period. So you get an aerobic and anaerobic stimulus without smashing your legs, and then in the shorter ones, you get a leg smashing workout without being totally anaerobically smashed. Because what happens is usually when people give up, they give up when there's like a collision of both. Mm-hmm. They give up when there's an anaerobic collision or an aerobic collision, or they give up when there's like so much lactic acid and they're built up in their legs and those combined that they just can't function. But when you still have legs or you still have lungs, your heart rate, whatever, you can still manage to kind of get through it. From the Moneghetti, it's kind of the same thing. Like you can get going, you can draw back, but what it does is it teaches you, I guess, like using the Moneghetti and like those short intervals on the bike as an example. The best example I can give is when I give athletes actually the session in the pool. 50, you go ahead and say it. No, you don't say 15 yards or 25 yards.
Oh
yeah. 15 yards all out, and then the rest of the 50 easy. You're teaching your body to be able to go fast and go hard and get hypoxic, and then you're teaching yourself how to regain your composure, breathe the way you're supposed to breathe, not stop, dissipate lactic acid, whatever it is, gain more oxygen back, and just go right back into your groove. Because it can be done. We just are so used to going way, way, way high and way, way hard and then feeling like we can't do anything else. But if you keep going long enough, then you're going to get it back. Let's be honest here. If you've done the appropriate amount of training, like you can't just walk out of the day and be like, hey, you know what? They said I could keep going and I feel better. I'm gonna go out and do a 4-hour ride today. And hey, guess what, guys? I didn't feel better. Well, so you got to be trained for it. But again, that's why you'll see a lot of sessions for that. Some athletes will do, some coaches will prescribe, where they have hard intervals in the beginning or hard intervals in the end. Very, very few times will they be like I won't ever do them like smack dab in the middle, unless we're talking like race pacing, like last ride for the year. It might be, especially for riding, let's ride really, really hard at the beginning and then teach your body how to keep going in a zone 2 and just kind of all day stuff and kind of get your legs back. Because the first 10 minutes after your main set's going to feel like crap. But then as they kind of loosen up and you dissipate the lactic acid, you've done it long enough, you teach your body to get rid of it faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. So if you go out of it in your race, you'll be okay. And the same thing can be said for being like under some fatigue and having main sets at the very end of your workout. You can allow your body time to warm up, time to get loose, time to get the blood flowing. And then you can perform so much better the last 2 hours of your ride than if I had asked you to do it at the beginning of your ride. You would have thought mentally, a mental block, there's no way I can hit these numbers. But then 2 hours later, when you're warm and you got a good lather going, guess what? Numbers hit. There's so many things you can teach your body. I mean, like the simplest way too is like why you should always be doing big gear work, but big gear work too, like, is to be able to train your legs to withstand that amount of damage that they're going to endure and encounter in long course racing. And it's also especially great for athletes who struggle with hills or going to encounter hills on their big races. You need to test your body no matter what chain ring or no matter what cassette you're going to use on whatever thing, and you always come in and say, yeah, man, I'm just going to spin it out. I'm just going to spin it out like the 90s, the 100s. I'm just going to spin up that hill, baby. Baby ring, spin up that hill. And then you look at the person, the baby ring, and they like can't breathe because they're still trying so hard. Like, don't fool yourself. It's still going to be hard. You're still going to go into a zone that you're not comfortable and you're not prepared for. Like, see Wisconsin 3 years ago, or 2 years ago when they changed and there's gigantic hill. I don't care what baby ring you had it in. Going up whatever that hill was straight up pain. And you were way out of the zone you ever wanted to be in a regular Ironman. But if you've did a lot of work and you've done sessions and intervals where you're doing 50 to 60 on cadence and you're building that strength and that durability for your legs to be able to get stronger and more, I'm talking like a deep strength. Because Ironman is strength with a little bit of speed mixed in. It's strength. It's again, like, it's not how fast you can go, it's how little you can slow down. So you got to be durable. You got to have that, like, we're talking, that's it, man. For Ironman, you need deep strength. And so it's just thinking about your body in a way of training it for the day, making your best use of your time, utilizing and working the systems you're supposed to work to maximize the time you're using to get and your abilities to get the performance that you want. But deep strength is where it's at.
I find that Wisconsin example so interesting because that was I always get it confused. Barlow,
something like that.
Whatever it was. Yeah. It was at roughly mile 40, right? I think, of the course, and we only did it once, and I'd never really thought about it much at the time, but if you weren't ready for that short little ridiculous climb on an Ironman course climb, that really could have wreaked havoc with the rest of your ride.
Oh gosh, yeah. And
I don't know if a lot of people actually thought about it that way, other than the fact that it was going to be a hard hill. But if that was something maybe that you kind of did for the first time all training season, that was probably throwing you all kinds of out of whack. So, and if you're not used to being able to settle back in and kind of find that place where, good stuff, man.
Hey, man. Happy Monday.
It is a happy Monday.
A little later than usual, but, hopefully just as valuable.
We can hope, man.
We can hope. Just a little late cap.
All right. Well, I on that note, I'm going out to do a fartlek.
A who?
Isn't that what it's called? Fartlek? I'm going to lay down some fartleks.
Yeah, on your greenway.
On my greenway. And I have a feeling it's going to be wide open today.
Yeah, your team, your greenway.
Monday, 60 degrees and cloudy right now.
It is beautiful. I can hear Hayden throwing a tantrum in the background, so the chances of me letting Allie having me go mountain bike alone here in a minute are dwindling by the second.
That's slim. Maybe I'll put on some Chopin and see how that classical music does my run.
Yeah, that's all gone. quickly before we go, if you have any questions about all the other things we do, training plans, the club membership, which we extended the offer of $299 for the rest of January, check that out. It's a really great option for a lot of athletes, whether you're a beginner or an experienced athlete. Lots of access to great people, good conversation, training plans, a customized plan for me, access to a lot of things. Check that out on the website. It's all the way to the far right under the club tab. Training and coaching packages offered is under that tab, and then you got camps, swim analysis, blog, everything else. You can go to crushingiron.com and check that out. Who you got tonight for the game?
Oh, Alabama.
As in, like, not close?
As in...
Because I heard that. I heard, like, by 17 in your voice.
Yeah, I was thinking 14. But, you know, this is one of those situations where everything else has been a blowout, so this will probably be a close game. I guess it's going to come down to the Clemson pass rush, right?
Yeah, and they're down a defensive tackle from
that's right.
Suspension, so that's definitely not going to hurt.
Yeah.
Definitely not going to help.
I just heard that I think it was about 7 or 8 of the starters on Alabama's offense are sophomores.
Oh, awesome.
Just so we all got that to look forward to.
That's right. Who knows, man? I think it's gonna be a good game. I agree. It's gonna be closer than the two semis. You know, my head is telling me Bama by 13. My heart obviously is pulling for Clemson. I just love Dabo Swinney. I think he's if I could wake up and be a football coach tomorrow, I would want to be him. I just love his attitude and the way he does things.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really know him, so.
Oh,
I can't really say I'd want to be like
him.
He's I'm sure he's got a little shade underneath that sunshine.
Everybody does.
Come on.
Dabo, I know
second highest paid football team in the country.
Bring it. Dabo, I know you're listening. Tell your team good luck.
No. Nick, if you're listening, I'm with you, buddy. Let's just railroad this whole system out. You know, win it for the next 5 years. Make it a joke.
Christ. Anyway, well, thank you for joining us. Sorry for the late one. That was on me. But, hey, we'll bring you back another free podcast, sponsor and commercial free, and more Peaky Blinders on Thursday.
All right, man. You catch up, dude. We can start talking about it.
Man, see you, dude.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.